Hey, what's up? It's Tony from Street Church and The Inside Job, and you're watching our podcast, The Inside Job Podcast. Thanks for hopping on board today. Hope all is well with you and yours. Today we're going to start a 2-week series that we're calling Perspective Really Matters. And the reason why we are calling it that is because perspective really matters, right? So, I think across the board in life, maintaining the right perspective is half of the battle, especially in terms of attempting to love those who are unlovable, right? Or difficult to love. I don't want to say that they're unlovable, but I just can't think of a better way to say it, right? You all know what I'm saying, right? People in your life who are difficult to love, whether they are family members or not. Those people that just don't treat us too well, or we have been mistreated by, or are just hard to love for one way in one way or the other. I think perspective really matters, and maintaining it really matters if we're going to be able to do this, right? So, unlovable. I think Merriam actually defines it, Merriam-Webster, incapable of inspiring love or admiration. But I love the Cambridge, Dictionary explanation of it. It just says not easy to love. And you all know what I'm talking about. I mean, it's not rocket science stuff, right? Not easy to love. How do we do that? So, I think the first thing is, I just want us, I'm just going to tell a quick little story on why perspective matters so much. I'll give an example. If you're part of our fellowship, you have heard this before. If you're not, I hope it blesses you. Perspective. Excerpt from the diary of a dog. 7:30 a.m. breakfast, my favorite thing. 9 o'clock a.m. I get to go for a walk with mom and dad, my favorite thing. 12 o'clock lunch, my favorite thing. 3 o'clock, the kids come home from school and play with me, my favorite thing. 6 o'clock dinner, my favorite thing. 9 o'clock, I get to crawl up in bed with mom and dad, my favorite thing. Okay, you ready? Excerpt from the diary of a cat. 7:30 a.m., day 735 of my captivity. Same house, two different perspectives, right? Perspective is half of the battle. I think we see it in the scriptures too, right? I love the story of David and Goliath. I don't have to explain it, because whether you are a church person or not, you know the story of David and Goliath. So Goliath is out there, and he's, apparently he's this huge giant, and he is, everybody sees him on the battlefield, and all of these seasoned warriors that are fighting for, Israel, they see how big he is, and they get afraid, and they run away. And they say, oh my God, he's so big. And then they turn tail and run away. And what does David do when he sees how big he is? He says to himself, he's so big I can't miss. And then he takes the slingshot, and you know the end of the story, right? Perspective. Perspective is everything, especially on being able to love people well who are difficult to love, or who are, in other words, unlovable. I think the first perspective that we have to have and that we have to maintain is a difficult one. And it's difficult because we grow up thinking that we are cuter than we are, or that we are more adorable than we are, or that we are more lovable than we are. And what I mean by that is this. And the Bible says in Ephesians chapter 2 It says that we are all children of wrath. I know it's hard to believe. I know, I'm not saying that you're not really nice, that you don't have good qualities about you, that you're not super talented, and I wouldn't want to hang out with you and join a bowling team with you. I would, I'm sure. But in comparison to this being, this holy being that we call God, who breathed us into existence, knit us in our mother's womb, and created us, in comparison to him and his perfection, we're not all that and a bag of chips, right? In fact, the Bible says that from the get-go, we are children of wrath. And, I didn't say it. If you're getting mad at me right now, you're don't take issue with me. It's not that I said it, but it's in the Bible, right? So in Romans chapter 5, it says this. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that you deserve to be loved? And if so, why? Just sit on that question and let it marinate for a while, right? Do you think that you need to be loved? And if so, why? Right? Because in the scriptures it says this in Romans chapter 5. It says, while we were still helpless at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. Right? And in Romans chapter 5 and verse number 8, it says, God demonstrated his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So what that is inferring, that, out of the gate, we are ungodly and we got issues and we need help. Right? And it's tough to believe, right? Because I have a 2.5-year-old grandson, and he's the cutest. Cuteless overload for sure on my grandson Luca. And everybody who sees him and has hung out with him would say the same thing. I'm not just saying that because I'm grandpa, it's true. But this kid is so adorable. And I think that the inclination is just to look at an infant or, like a toddler, and just see and notice and recognize the cuteless overload. And there is cuteless overload, right? But the reality is that, in comparison to the perfection of God, we are marred. And we are marred out of the gate. And we're scarred and we're blemished. And we're deserving of wrath, actually. And that's a difficult perspective, but it's the right perspective. And I think if we see ourselves in that light, it'll help us to see other people. It'll help us not to elevate ourselves in front of other people, right? Because, in our culture, we learn from a young age about the merit system. And the merit system is not bad, it's good to, earn things and to accomplish things. Of course it's good, right? But we learn from a young age that, if you're not fast enough, you're not going to make the track team. If you don't hit a baseball far enough, you're not going to make the all-star team. If you're not very, very good at math, you're not going to get 5 stars on your math homework, right? And we sometimes what happens is that we can unconsciously transfer that over into how we treat other people who are maybe not as, accomplished as us, or not as prim and proper as us, or are not living, in a way that is as healthy or even as good as, us, right? That's what we naturally do. So we treat people differently, right? Because they're not on the same tier, kind of, whether they are mentally ill, or whether they are hustlers on the streets, or homeless or prostitutes, or whether they're just angry, miserable people, right? We don't treat them as we treat other people different because they are at a different level of accomplishment. And to protect ourselves from that, we have to maintain the perspective that we're all on the same level playing field in terms of being broken and being blemished and being marred in comparison to a holy, perfect God, right? So that perspective will equip us and will, enable us, hopefully, to love people who are difficult to love, or to love the unlovable, right? Yeah, very, very important. And one of the things that I love about the way that God loved us in our unlovable state was he didn't do it in an ethereal sort of abstract and and conceptual way. He did it in a very tangible and practical way, right? He put on skin, he became a human, he willingly went to a cross, and he died for us, right? That's not an ethereal, abstract way, right? That's just not talk. He loved us in a real, practical, tangible way. And what that tells me is that, I don't want to love people just with lip service, right? I want to do it in a real, tangible, and practical way. And it's hard enough for me to love people well in a real, tangible, practical way who, are treating me well and who are, easy to love. It's very difficult for me to love people in a practical, tangible way who are not easy to love, or who we would classify as unlovable. But I think maintaining this perspective will enable us to do it, or will at least help to some extent. Next week, we're going to talk about, I think, something super, important. It's what Jesus referred to as the second greatest thing that we can do, right? So until then, have a great week, and yeah, I'll see you then. Bye.